Here we go. All right. Hello,
All right.
everyone.
Hi.
Welcome back to the Canadian Bro Show my name is Paul Bale.
I'm John Leister. How's it
And John,
going, eh?
my partner in crime.
We're a couple of hosers, eh? From Canada, the Great White North.
Take off, eh? You used to bring beer. Where's the beer? You probably already drank it.
I like my beer. I'm a stereotypical Canadian man, in that sense anyway.
Yeah, and I don't really drink beer. I'll drink beer with Johnny, but I don't really drink beer, but whatever. Listen, welcome back to the Canadian Bro Show, all things Canadian with Pauly and Johnny. This will be episode 13. And Johnny and I, we kind of been talking about the last few episodes of what we might be turning into. We might be actually creating a new beast that is the Canadian silly, goofy version of a couple of dorky dudes, unlike Siskel and Ebert, but the Canadian Bro Show.
When I was a kid, I was such a fan of those two. I would watch sneak previews and Siskel and Ebert at the movies. And even when I disagreed with them, I didn't care because I just love their passion for movies. And they were just so, Roger Ebert actually wrote a movie. He wrote Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Have you seen that movie? It's really wild.
Yeah.
And he was such a great writer. And his reviews are often very better than the actual movies.
Listen, I watched their show for 30 years.
Yeah. They were so great.
So if we can somehow stick, I mean, we're pop culture. That's what this segment of the Canadian Bro Show is about. And I think if we stay within our comfort zone of pop culture, we can do a lot of film. And, we're getting really good numbers for the film stuff. And Today, Johnny brought up this. We've talked about it many times in the past, but he loves this genre as much as I do. And we are going to do our, as many as we can, our favorite martial art movies. And the martial arts are just incredible. And it's going to be very interesting to hear, because I know Johnny's going to come up with some esoteric, black and white.
There's one or two that I'll be very surprised if you actually heard of. But most of them are pretty mainstream. Like I said earlier, I think there'll be some synchronicity. Do you want to start, Pauly?
Yeah, sure, if you want. Now, I'm going to start because I want to give you my first one is, and by the way, all of mine are not in any particular order as per usual, but my first one is one that I think you are going to mention, and I won't tell you why. So I'm going to switch it for another one and let you bring this one up. And if you don't, then I'll bring it up later. Because I know how much it's important to you. And I would have to say, if I think of martial arts, I think of lots of martial art movies, but one in particular that stands out is my hero, Bruce Lee. In 1973, Warner Brothers, Enter the Dragon.
On my list, of course.
It was Bruce Lee's, unfortunately. He died less than a year. And it was just tragic. And a lot of people think it was triads and he got whacked, and some people say it was an aneurysm, some say it was drug.
From what I understand, he took an aspirin that had some opium in it, and he went to sleep, and his brain, cerebral edema, he died of cerebral edema. His brain grew. Now, as to the origin of that aspirin, that's where the shadiness comes into play. Like, was it done deliberately? Was he given this by someone who knew in advance that it could actually kill him? That's the mystery.
Well, we don't know. It was never solved. It never happened. It was very tragic. I remember as a young man, I couldn't believe it. I remember crying. I had his poster up in my room, and it was the Enter the Dragon poster with
my dad took me to that movie.
Chest, and he's just shredded. The guy was like 140 pounds, but he was just
0% body fat.
I'm telling you, the guy was incredible.
He was an extraordinary athlete.
That movie was just unbelievable, and I just want to read a little blurb from it because I know a lot of people that are interested in martial arts have probably seen this movie and maybe haven't seen it for a long time. But Enter the Dragon is a martial arts film that will forever be immortalized. Not only in the story is compelling, but also the Bruce Lee's final film, released 1 month after his untimely death. The film tells a story of a secret agent who travels to an island of Opium Lord for the tournament against other martial artists throughout the world. Its legacy is such that in 2004, it was added to the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. I completely concur with that. If you haven't seen this movie, make some popcorn. It is absolutely, the guy is just incredible. It's really
And
good.
the chemistry that he has with John Saxon and Jim Kelly in that movie, the three men together, very appealing. Like a great bromance in that film.
This is
Those
what
two
Johnny
guys.
does. Every single time I'm ready to say something, he comes in and says the exact thing I'm going to say.
Oh, sorry.
When I worked at the Hotel Meridian, John Saxon was filming in Vancouver, and I served
Wow.
him a couple of nights, and I got to talk to him about Bruce Lee and that final film.
I didn't
And
know that.
he actually shared because he came in later in the evening, and he liked to be sitting alone in the worst section because he didn't want people bothering him. Yet his own server
Is that
was
right?
bugging him, but he was real cool, and he shared everything, and his toupee was actually pretty good for one in the mid 80s.
Yeah, I think I've seen it behind the scene photos where like while crew members actually fitting the toupee on his head. But
Oh
he
yeah,
was one of my favorite actors as a kid. I would watch any TV show if he was in it.
great.
He was an appealing actor.
Yeah, he's a very very underappreciated. No one talks about him. I just he was great. I was so happy I got to talk to him. But what a great film, Johnny. Who do you got? What do you got? What's
Okay,
happening?
I'm going to go with I'm going to start with a very obscure choice. I'll be very
Oh, of
surprised if
course.
you've heard of this movie. Now, I saw this movie in 1990 by myself at the Capitol 6 in downtown Vancouver. Opening day, completely empty theater. I was just a martial arts nut, and I like the poster. This movie is called Angel Town, and it's about stars a French actor, kickboxer named Olivier Gruner, who has appeared in a lot of straight to video, straight to DVD kind of movies. Never really became a huge star. Kind of a poor man's Jean-Claude Van Damme,
I
but
was just thinking.
excellent.
I was just
Have you know
thinking.
this movie?
No,
Ex-
but I was actually going to say that, interject, but you already said it because every time I think about to say something, you just say it. So I was going,
well, it's not on purpose. So,
no, it's because we're on the same wavelength and we both
right,
love
right.
it.
So
So
Olivier Gruner plays a French student. He's going to school in LA, and he's living in a neighborhood that's overrun by gangs, and he fights the gangs pretty much single-handedly with his fists and his feet. And it's just a really balls to the wall, and it has a good sense of humor,
that
and it
was
has
pretty
a
good.
good message about self-belief. He takes his kid under his wing, and the gang, they're trying to get him to join, and he doesn't want to join, but he's tempted to join because he's scared. There's a little bit of a Karate Kid aspect to it, which I also want to talk about. So this is a very obscure film that very few people have seen, but it is on YouTube, and I highly recommend it. It's if you like martial arts, if you like lots of action, it's not boring. Let's put it that way.
Pretty good. And he was a B actor, and he did a whole bunch of films for in that B actor genre. But you're right about Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's just, and he's still with us, and
Right.
that's a good one and a surprise. The one thing you have to, Johnny is going to come out with some very esoteric old school, and this is when I'm excited. I'm a little
I
bit more
think Van
mainstream.
Damme has some property in Vancouver, if I'm not mistaken. I've been told.
He used to, I believe. I don't even know if he still has it, but he would show up at the Hotel Meridian as well. And
Oh,
he was
really?
into he was into at that time with Jean-Claude Van Damme when he was doing Arsenio Hall's show, and
Right.
he would come onto the show with almost button like his wearing nothing.
The
And
muscles from Brussels.
right, and the guy was like 5'8", but he really had a great body for his size, and the only thing he could do was a split, and he was handsome and
Well,
charismatic
he's
and
a
could talk.
ballet dancer too. Well, you know how he got his start? He followed. Do you know the film producer Menachem Golan from Golan? Remember Golden Globus back in the day? He
Yeah,
actually followed him around, and when he came out of the restaurant, Van Damme did his famous
yeah.
spinning back kick, and boom, Menachem Golan said, "Here, let's
Now
make
it
a deal." And
wasn't just
they made Bloodsport his first movie. It's a real
it
Cinderella
wasn't.
story.
You're missing an important part. He did the spinning back kick, but he also between two tables because he interrupted them in a fancy restaurant. He went up and did the splits between two tables that were not close
Wow,
to each other, and the guy just looked at him and went, you know,
does that
but
hurt?
yeah, no, he was very limber.
Yes.
And one of his commercials he did, I don't know if you saw it, where he was
Oh
between
yeah,
two wheelers
the
and he
trucks.
did the splits, and then the trucks
Yeah.
go hard. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, my next one is again going back to my hero Bruce Lee, 1972. This is before his last film, and Golden Harvest was produced all of his own films,
Right. Raymond
all of
Chow.
his own ones. And this is 1972, and it's director Wheelo, and it's Fist of Fury. And I'm going to read this to you because I love this
Yeah.
film. Bruce Lee stars as a man who is out for revenge after the murder of his martial arts teacher. And if you know who his martial arts teacher is, and I'll mention it later in one of my picks, this is where he learned that very distinct aspect of one type of martial arts. And this is the film where Bruce Lee broke out the nunchucks for the very first time, a weapon that would later become his iconic accessory. And it is dated
with 2 sticks with a chain in the middle.
Correct. And just a deadly weapon. The way
like
he
a blur.
Incredible film. And if
Yeah.
a lot of these people, if you're watching it, we're old school. Yeah, the 70s, you weren't born until the 90s. Go back and check this out. Make a huge thing of popcorn and you'll love it. Did you
No
like Fist of
CGI.
Fury? Did you like it?
Oh, are you kidding?
Yeah.
We grew up on these movies, Pauly. Bruce
I know.
Lee. My dad took me into Enter the Dragon. I mean, those are the kind of movies where I just wanted to walk back into the theater and rewatch them on the same day.
Oh, I would do that sometimes. I would do that sometimes, especially if it was the Capital Six, because you had 10 theaters, so you could pay for one theater. It's not like I'm trying to, but every once in a while you just go back and open a door and walk in and voila, the movie started.
There you go.
And thanks very much. What do you got next, Tony?
Okay, my next choice is 1992's Dragon: The Bruce Lee Story, starring Jason Scott Lee and Robert Wagner, who plays his agent. A really upbeat and fun and super entertaining. I went to this movie thinking, is this going to be dark? Are they going to show us like the dark side of Bruce Lee? Are they going to introduce all these, conspiracy theories? No, it's a movie that really celebrates the positive aspects of his life, what a self-believer he was. And it has one of my all-time favorite fight scenes where he's in the kitchen and he's flirting with that beautiful waitress, and another one of the kitchen guys is jealous, and so they get into a fight in the back alley, and Green Onions is playing. Really one of the most fun and entertaining and creatively choreographed fight scenes of all time, in my opinion. I love that movie. I've seen it many times.
And by the way, for those that don't know, Bruce Lee was a very clean living dude. He never did any hard drugs that we know of, although he did like to smoke pot. And he got, because he started off in the Green Hornet before he did a lot of North American films. That was his first North American television show. And he really hated it, but he needed to start somewhere. And so all of the LA actors like Steve McQueen and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and John Saxon and a whole bunch of others.
James Coburn was one of his students.
Coburn and McQueen and him, they used to like to party, have a little cocktails and smoke some reefer. And that was his really only thing. He liked to have a few cocktails once in a while, and he liked to smoke pot. Other than that, he was totally clean living. So that was good. I'm going to go to the next one. Is again Golden Harvest, and director Mark Swee, or I can't even enunciate that correctly, is Once Upon a Time in China. 1991.
This is Jet Li, I want to say.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to read the thing. This is 134 minutes. This is a great movie. It's so well done. And it's really sort of like, it reminded me of like an Asian version of Sergio Leone's Western classic.
The titles would indicate that.
Obviously, right? But also the length, 134 minutes back then in even 99 in the early 90s. Jet Li stars as a Cantonese folk hero, Wong Fei Hung, who trains men in martial arts to help fight off foreign invasion in the 19th century of Guangdong province. Li injured his knee in the filming of this. A lot of people don't know that. And he continued to film, and he landed him in a cast. And the final scene had to be done with a body double, and many of the shots waist up to hide the plaster. A lot of people don't know that. It's a nice little tidbit. But if you've got, 134 minutes, Jet Li is just fantastic in this.
I think I've seen this movie, but I don't remember. I might have seen it back in the day. I'm not 100%, but I know it's a classic.
Johnny, you're slipping out of screen again.
Oh, okay. Better?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Gravity.
What do you got next?
Okay, I'm going to go with Kung Fu Hustle.
Oh!
2000. Have you seen this movie? It's basically...
I've seen it 10 times.
Yeah, it is a very whimsical film. It's basically, imagine Bruce Lee meets Looney Tunes. It's like half martial arts movie and half live action cartoon. Yeah. And one of my favorite characters from that movie is the landlady. Do you remember the very hard-bitten, smoking landlady who runs
Smoking,
that little
had like a
shanty
2 inch
town?
hash. She had a 2 inch ash hanging off her cigarette. It was
Yeah,
incredible.
and it's one absolutely one of the funniest movies I've ever made. And I love how the two main characters are they're homeless and they're kind of they've given up on life and they really want to be gangsters. Like their main goal in life is to be gangsters, but they clearly suck at it because their hearts are too good. I always find that to be very appealing. And I like how they try to do bad things. You know, they try to commit crimes, but their hearts are just not in it. And then eventually, spoiler warning, we discovered that this main character is actually, destined to be the world's greatest martial artist. I mean, it's just a super dazzling and funny and whimsical, fun film. And I'm surprised that you have seen it. And I'm surprised you
Oh,
enjoyed it because not everybody likes this movie.
it's on my list, Johnny.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
great.
Oh, and the fight scenes and the choreography is incredible.
Yeah,
And it's I think it's really one of the it reminds me of like the zombie genre I talked about, Shaun of the Dead. It's so difficult to make a whimsical, comedic sort of fantasy of any
right.
genre and make it fun. They actually did, I think, three. That was the
Yeah,
first
because
one.
sometimes one can cancel out the other. It's lightning in a bottle, basically.
Totally.
You know.
But what a great film. If you haven't seen
Yeah.
it, do it. Do
Stephen
it.
Chow was the director and the star.
Yeah, and fantastic director too.
Oh, and he
My
also did. He also have you seen Shaolin Soccer?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
by the same director.
Of
Yeah,
course. That's why I
yeah.
said they did
Another
two more.
classic.
They
Yeah,
did two more. You probably didn't hear that. So my
two
next
more.
one is a film that I haven't seen since I first saw it in 2008. I think I only saw it once since, but nothing against the thing. It's just it's a two-part series called Red Cliff by
Oh,
John Woo.
is this Chow Yun Fat?
Huh?
Chow Yun Fat? Is he the star of those movies?
I'll read you the thing because it's two films. So a couple of my choices, I couldn't choose just part one or part two. I had to mention both because they're equally as impressive. But this particular one, John Woo did in 2008. It's 148 minutes. It's a two-part war epic that begins in with this first chapter and tells a story of a battle fought during China's Three Kingdom period in the 3rd century. Talking about going back way, way back. And the film had an $80 million budget in
Wow.
2008 for Chinese. And it's not like they don't have the money, but
Right.
they'd rather not spend that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the most expensive Asian finance film to date up until 2008, of which has been broken by a couple of others that I might mention in this later. The Chinese army also lent a considerable hand, which means that the producers probably didn't have to pay the Chinese army for free labor, and offering up to 1,500 soldiers to help build roads and play extras.
Okay.
Just an incredible film. If you haven't seen it, Johnny,
No, I haven't seen it.
dude, you've got
Yeah.
to. It's not
Okay.
dude, it's bro. It's the bro show. But dude,
Right.
you gotta see it. So good. What do
Okay.
you
Okay. I'm going to go with, well, we've talked about The Matrix a couple of times.
got?
So for this one, I want to bring up The Matrix Reloaded. Now,
Oh,
it's not as good as the first Matrix, but it has two of what I think are the most entertaining and exciting and well choreographed fight scenes of all time. Of course, there's the one where he's fighting all the Agent Smiths, like just one after another. And I love the shot where he
it's like
pulls the
100 of them.
pole, he pulls the pole out of the cement and he whips it around in like super fast motion bullet time, one of the most iconic shots in cinema history. And then the second fight where he's in the museum and he's fighting the twins with the blonde dreadlocks, and they're
Oh,
using all the different weapons on the wall. And I
yeah.
just love, Keanu Reeves gets a lot of crap for his acting. His acting works for me because he comes across as so calm and like his superhero poses when he's Neo, like with the knives, are just spot on. Like he just gets that whole genre. And so when I go to a karaoke bar and I'm looking at my phone on my days off, I probably watch that scene at least one time. It's just eminently watchable. Now the rest of the movie, I'm not such a huge fan of. I think there's a lot of philosophical gobbledygook. I don't think that the Wachowski brothers or sisters, whatever they are now, I
See,
don't think that they had as much time to prepare as they did for the first Matrix because they made two sequels. But in
yeah,
terms of fighting and martial arts, really A plus in my opinion.
yeah, I agree. I loved all of the Matrix. I haven't seen the fourth one yet, so
Mm.
I might actually watch. I think I will watch that tonight actually, because we were talking about it in one of our last episodes.
Yeah, yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
how
you'll
can
like
you
it too.
not enjoy all these things? I'm going to go next. I'm going to go to the House of Flying Daggers
Oh,
in 2004. Zhang Zimu is the director. 119 minutes. The House of Flying Daggers refers to a secret organization that opposed the Chinese government during the Tang dynasty. A beautiful dancer thought to be associated with the group is freed from prison. She leads the police to the new leader of the group, but a series of twists and turns throws off everybody's expectations. Writing for the Washington Post critic Desson Thompson praised many areas of the film, noting that the true art lay in the eyes of the cinematography, which is absolutely incredible in terms of the affinity for color. Johnny, you're falling off the screen again.
okay, sorry. I'm listening to you. I'm
Do you
listening
have back problems?
intently.
Do you have a back deformity of some kind? Did you do a little something to make you
No, I'm
numb?
just wrapped with listening to every syllable that's coming out of your
Even though you got
eloquent mouth.
headphones. Okay. So the Host of the Flying Daggers, it's excellent. Very
I have not
enjoyable.
seen that movie.
Well, you've got to catch up on a few of these movies
Okay,
then.
apparently I'm
What do you
behind.
got? What do you got next?
Okay, I'm going to go with Karate Kid, 1984, Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita. Not the greatest martial arts movie in terms of fighting, but I think one of the greatest martial arts movies in terms of story and character. The bond between Daniel and Miyagi is very touching. And I love how Johnny at the end, he kind of realizes what a dick, if we can say that on YouTube. His sense is, I just love that moment of
Yeah.
realization where he's like, where Martin Cove says to him, "Do you have a problem with that?" And he's like, "No, Sensei," but clearly he does. And I love that inner conflict. And then the moment where he gives Daniel the trophy, I feel was very touching. And of course, they've done a continuation of Karate Kid since then called Cobra Kai. And I actually watched the first 2 seasons. And if you're a fan of those movies, you really need to see Cobra Kai because it is an absolute wonderful continuation to seeing where those characters are today and the continuing animosity.
The film was a global success in both
Yeah.
of them, and Ralph Macchio made a ton of money, and for the most part disappeared after it finished. It probably didn't need to work. He made so much money, but very enjoyable, good family
Oh yeah.
movie. Kids loved it. Wasn't violent, and it had a good story. I have to admit, I saw them both, and not a huge fan, but I enjoyed them back when I was younger.
Sure.
Absolutely. The next one I want to talk about is one that I didn't have anything else to rent, and I think it was in 2003, and it's called The Blind Swordsman.
Oh, Satoichi. Oh,
Yes,
yes. I've seen
yes.
this movie.
The
I've seen
director
the
was
original movies from the 1960s.
yeah. Well, I mean, this actor had been around for a long time. Everybody knew him, and Takeshi Kitano
Mm.
actually got his first directoring. Let me just read: Blind Zatotechi, a master swordsman, makes his way into town of a warring gangs, of course, and where he
Yes.
meets two women, plotting to avenge the murder of their parents. The role of Zatoichi is not a new one, but
No.
in the previous 26 films,
Yeah,
the
there was a
character
long-running television series too from
yeah,
Japan.
absolutely. Very popular in Asia.
Mm.
The character was played by Kiyoshi Asosami and Shintano Katsu. Please forgive my enunciation of
Easy for you to say.
Chinese, but I'm working at it. And it was the first time director Kitano acting under the name Beat, which I love
Yes.
this name. Beat Takashi played the role, and he was blind.
Yes.
And the swordsmanship, even though he can see, is really extraordinary. And it's a fun film, and it's
Yeah.
116 minutes.
I I remember watching this movie in the theater, and I was kind of into it, and I was kind of losing interest. But then there's a moment towards the end where these two women, they're performing like a geisha dance in front
Yeah,
of the bad guys that they're intending to kill,
yeah,
and they finish their dance, and one of them says, "We know who you are, and we know why you're here." and suddenly they're surrounded by like 100 bad guys.
Yeah.
And this music kicks in, like this really intense music. And I suddenly, I'm like, oh, I'm in. I'm like, Zatoichi, where are you? We need you. We need you right now. And when he shows up, it's just glorious, right?
So I'm not going to say who was influenced by that scene aside from you and me, everybody else, but a very famous director was heavily influenced by this particular film and others, and of which I won't say till a little bit later because it's on my list. But
Okay.
anyways, I love that. And who do you have next?
Okay, I'm going to go with Return of the Dragon, which
Oh,
is known as Way of the Dragon in Asia. Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. And again, now we've talked about Bruce Lee quite a bit already, but the fight between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, where they meet at the Roman Colosseum, and there's this little kitten. Of all
quick,
things, there's a kitten.
quick interjection. This was my opening comments. This was my very first film I was going to say, and I wanted to give it to Johnny because I knew he'd bring it up. Johnny not only loves martial arts and Bruce Lee, but he is totally infatuated with Chuck Norris.
Well, infatuated.
Yeah.
Well, who isn't, right? Yeah, their fight at the end is so well
In the
choreographed. I love
Coliseum
the
room.
slow motion. You know, some American action movies, maybe not so much now, they do a lot of editing, like they do a lot of cutting. Bruce Lee, and he directed the movie, the way that
Yeah.
he shot that scene, he basically just turns on the camera and allows these two guys to fight. And then, spoiler warning, you know, Bruce Lee, of course, wins because he's a hero and Chuck Norris is a villain. And then he actually picks up Chuck Norris's gi and puts it on top of him as a gesture of respect and honor. It's like, yes, I beat you, but I had to work to do it. And obviously there was a mutual camaraderie, which I think is very appealing. It's a great movie.
It was mutual respect. Bruce Lee would have killed Chuck Norris in 3 seconds. But you know, the interesting thing is that, and that's a great movie. And I just want to finish. A lot of people don't know this. It was the only movie that where Bruce Lee had full creative control.
Mm.
He was a star, the writer, the director, the producer, and even played percussion on the soundtrack. So he took advantage of every
Wow.
single
I
get
did
paid.
musician too. What a Renaissance man.
Yeah, well, again, he filmed in 1 year. He filmed 3 incredible films that we've mentioned, and he died 1 month after Enter the Dragon, tragically. And
Yeah.
it's a great film. If you haven't seen it, my God, you must. It's that good. That's a
Okay.
really
What's your next choice, Pauly?
one of my favorite. This one's not. It's definitely martial arts. I'm going to go with the very first, The Raid, in 2011.
Oh yeah, I've seen this movie.
It's an Indonesian film,
Epic.
and the lead actor. I'm just going to read the little tidbit here. In this Indonesian film, a SWAT team is sent to infiltrate a building in Jakarta that's being occupied by a drug lord, a very evil drug lord. They're all evil, but the team becomes prisoners in the process. The U.S. Release of this film outfitted it with electro rock score that was different from the one initially released. And the NPR review, however, says the replacement soundtrack remarkably like the original. I'm not really sure why they said that. It's kind of weird, but
Mm.
if you haven't seen, The Raid is so uber violent that, and they don't mention the lead actor, who I really like.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's relentlessly paced, and so is the sequel.
Well, absolutely. The
Yeah.
sequels, they made the sequel because they had no idea that the first one was going to.
Redemption is the name of it, right? The Raid Redemption.
I
Yeah.
believe so. I believe so. Yeah, they don't say in the source that I got it from, but oh my God, it is. I've seen that at least 6, 7 times. It is fantastic. I've seen them
Yeah.
both. Really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. Who do you got, Johnny?
Okay, I'm going to go with a movie called Tom Yum Gung, which was released in North America as The Protector, which is
Isn't
which
that
stars.
isn't that isn't that a Chinese soup?
uh,
No,
it
Malaysian
stars
soup.
it stars Tony Jaa, who is not only a phenomenal
No,
martial artist but a phenomenal
that's Tony.
gymnast.
Tony Jaa was in The Raid.
He was in The Raid. That's right.
He was the
And
lead.
he was in one of the Fast and Furious movies, and I think he was in the last Expendables. And
Yeah.
the plot is basically he's a young guy, and his elephants, of all things, were stolen. His pet elephants by poachers, and so he traces the poachers back to their lair, and it's basically just one phenomenal fight scene after another. And you know, I love an action scene was like one guy against 50. There's just something about that that's very appealing. And he just, the way that he moves and the breaking arms and flipping guys over like sacks of potatoes, it's a really fun movie. And if you're a martial arts fan, you need to see The Protector. But the original name was Tom Yum Goong, and it was made in 2005. So that's my next choice. Have
Well,
you seen this movie?
really
And Ong
awesome.
Bak is another one. Right,
Really awesome. I'm just looking at our time here. We're at 30
okay.
minutes.
Are we just
So
about done?
instead of going through all mine, but you've taken Kung Fu Hustle. I think I'm going to go back to another John Woo film.
Mm.
And it was called Red Cliff 2, 2009. And now, I brought up Red Cliff 1 in the first. I did. 2008 was Red Cliff 1. Red Cliff 2 came out, obviously, if they make a good film, and a lot of John Woo's films are pretty good. He's an excellent director, excellent
Yeah, I
choreographer.
was a huge fan back in the day.
And he's
The Killer.
violent. And Red Cliff
Hard
2 is
boiled.
fantastic. So they kicked it up a notch, and this is the closing chapter of the two-part. Red Cliff 1 and 2 are, like Kill Bill 1 and 2, the same sort of vibe. And so John Woo just wanted to finish off. Well, he did 142 minutes. The closing chapter of the two-part story, Red Cliff 2, wraps up the tale of a legendary battle in China's imperial history, as I mentioned in the first one. The two films together form nearly a 5-hour epic. If you'd like to, sit back on a holiday with a day off and watch 1 and 2 in succession. Popcorn will have to be a lot more, probably get a few extra beers, but it is a masterpiece production. It's really awesome. And I'll just finish it off with, and the second chapter gave audiences what they were looking for. Together, the two films cost $80 million to make, the most expensive Chinese to be made at that time, which is what I said in Red Cliff 1. But they certainly made all of that money back and more. Great film.
Okay. Well, I think I have one more, and then I'm done. I'm going to go with 1978's Drunken Master, starring Jackie Chan. Now, back in the 90s, I actually used to go to Chinatown to watch these martial arts movies that weren't showing in the mainstream theaters like the Capitol 6. And
just
that's
wait.
where I saw.
One sec, Johnny.
Sure.
The Legend of the Drunken Master was my next one.
That's the sequel.
I know. That was my next one. But anyways, great.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on, please.
They're both great. But the first one is very funny, and I think it's Jackie Chan's real breakout movie. And it was probably the first kung fu comedy. I think most kung fu movies before then were more like the Bruce Lee, very revenge based and very serious, more serious minded. But Jackie Chan brought a kind of a slapstick quality, and I love how just very creative fighting, and basically his dad. He's very undisciplined, and so his dad, who's a martial arts teacher, sends him off to this old man, and he's the most vicious, sadistic. Basically treats Jackie Chan like a welcome mat, and just brutalizes him for the entire movie before he has the inevitable showdown with the final villain. And it's a really fun. It's very silly. There's one scene where a guy gets a bump on the head and he grows like an Elmer Fudd, like kind of a bit like Kung Fu Hustle in that sense. But it's super fun and super entertaining, and it's probably the first. I hate movies that are dubbed. Like if I watch a foreign movie, quote unquote foreign movie, I want to see the subtitles. The dubbing, the American actors who dub these characters are excellent. I feel like a lot of dubbed movies back in the day, sometimes I think they weren't even actors. I think they were just like the studio chief's nephew or something. It's like, hey, read these lines. These are professional actors doing the dubbing, and their voices are really funny and really spot on. So Drunken Master, and as you mentioned, Legend of Drunken Master, and also by the way, the character is the same character that you mentioned earlier, Wong Fei Hong, who I think is probably one of the most famous fictional characters in China, Hong Kong, and Asia, like Zatoichi.
That an IP, man. But I love it. And Jackie Chan, I got to say, he does his own stunts, everything, and some of the best choreographed stunts, doing it himself without wires and everything. And injured so many times.
He's broken every bone in his body.
Yeah, like
he's in constant pain.
Like Evel Knievel. Like, what's going to happen to your back if you keep bending over like that? So the next one I'm going to do is more of it was an Asian Union film and entertainment, but it really took off because of its scope and its splendor, and the costumes and the cinematography is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon,
Okay.
2000. Ang
Michelle
Lee was
Yeoh.
the director. And set in the 19, it was 120 minutes, set in the 19th century of the Qing dynasty in China. A young Chinese warrior steals the sword of a famous swordsman, spurring a wild adventure into uncharted territory. That's to say the least. It's incredible, the scope of this. And the story is taken from a small portion of a 5-part novel written by Wang Dulu, one of the most lauded films in cinema, actually winning 4 Academy Awards. One is the highest grossing foreign film in American history. So Hollywood just absolutely fell for this. And then they spurred a whole bunch of similar films. But my God, it's so
You won
good.
Best Picture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the 4 Academy Awards. I think it was
Right.
best costume, set design, choreography, and best film. And I think Ang Lee he didn't win for best director, but he was voted, I believe.
And
Because
Chow Yun-fat is in that movie, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
I
yeah,
used to be a big fan of his.
a lot of people are in that movie
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of the money they spent. They got all the big players. So how many more you got?
That's it. I'm done. That's my
All right.
list.
I've got God, I got quite a few more.
Oh, someone's knocking on the door. Oh, I got a 10-minute warning.
10-minute warning. We're going to finish
Yeah.
before 10 minutes. I'm going to bang these 2 out. I want to talk about I'm going to talk about Hard Boiled.
Oh, yes.
1992.
Love that movie.
Golden
Yeah.
Princess film production, director John Woo. I mean, the guy is just so talented. And 128 minutes. And Chow Yun-fat, once again, the legend, stars in this action film about a hardened cop that partners with an undercover agent to help take down a gang leader once again and his crew. Director John Woo made this film, which glorifies the police in response to criticism for his previous films, which typically put gangsters in the spotlight. So it was kind of like double middle fingers up to everybody. I can do this any way I want and make it brilliant. And it is a very, very entertaining film. If you haven't seen it.
I saw that. I remember seeing this movie when it came at a film festival, at the Vancouver Film Festival in 1992. And it was the first time where I really felt like I was sitting in a movie theater packed with not just average people, quote unquote average people, but really hardcore film buffs like you and me. And the audience reaction was like Star Wars. It was like people were cheering all the way through because Chow Yun-fat is so absurdly cool in this movie.
So charismatic.
He's so charismatic and self-confident, and he's just like the quintessential action hero. He's Tequila. His name was Tequila.
His screen presence is like he's burning the screen.
Magnetic. Yeah,
absolutely. His confidence, and it was just brilliant. What a great film.
Have you seen A Better Tomorrow? Have you seen that movie, A Better Tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah, that's another good one.
Johnny, I think I've seen every movie ever made. I kid you not. The next one I want to talk about is one of my favorite. It's not necessarily a martial arts film, but the director is so extraordinary, and it's a 2-port. It's Kill Bill 1 and 2.
Oh yeah.
And Quentin Tarantino. I mean, he just 137 minutes, and this is volume 2, but volume 1 was equally as impressive. But that scene in where the one gal takes on 50 guys.
The bar. Yeah, with the Kato masks.
Yeah. Oh my God. And kills is probably, anyways, it's not evident by now. Quentin Tarantino drew huge inspiration from earlier martial arts classics. Kill Bill 2 and 1. Kill Bill 2 is one of the most famous films following Uma Thurman's character who seeks revenge against Bill, a hitman and ex who tried to assassinate her. The movie was produced at the same time as Kill Bill 1, but the story was divided in 2 films because of the long running time. I go back and watch them if you have the time, part 1 and 2 in succession. It will take 5 hours. Just brilliant. Just breathtaking.
There's a deleted scene where David Carradine fights Michael Jai White, who's another amazing martial artist actor. Have you seen that scene?
Yes.
It's really epic.
Yeah. Actually, in the release of he released both 1 and 2 together with a whole director's cut and a whole bunch of.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see both movies edited together.
Oh, so would I. So would I. And the next one I'm going to talk about, I only got a couple more. I want to bang them out really quick because we only got a few.
You're going to kick me out pretty soon, I think.
We got 5 minutes. So I'm going to go Yip Man. Yip Man in 2008, Golden Harvest Company once again. Wilson Yip is directing. It's 106 minutes. Yip Man, or IP Man, which a lot of Americans would know him as.
He was Bruce Lee's teacher, if I'm not mistaken.
He was, and he was the real-life grandmaster of Wing Chun martial arts, which is and the teacher of Bruce Lee. This biographical film follows his life in the 1930s in China, while the country was at war with Japan. It's the first film in a series of IP movies, and they're all great. And although this is the first story told by the man himself, the concept of a biography film had been in the works for almost 3 decades. Just incredible. And if you watch how he moves and you see Bruce Lee, and you got to see it. I'll just bang out a couple more.
Donnie Yen is the name of the star actor who plays him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, thank you for that. The next one is Old Boy in 2003. Now, the Americans did a copy of it with Josh Brolin. And it's Park Chan-wook, a Korean director. 120 minutes. This Korean action thriller follows the story of Oh Dae-soo, a released prisoner who's been held in captivity for 15 years. And upon his release, he learns he has to find his captor in the next 5 days. The film is based on the Japanese manga. According to Roger Ebert, our friend and legend, this film is powerful, important, and the type of movie that isn't easily made, if not at all, in the U.S. until they copied it, due to the rawness of sexuality and violence in its synergy.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty intense.
It's
I haven't seen it.
Go watch Josh Brolin's one. It's not as good, but it's very violent.
I think
but
Spike Lee directed that.
Sorry?
Was it Spike Lee directed the remake?
No.
No?
Okay. I don't know. I don't have them on. And the last one, I'll finish off the last one, my 19th minus the 2 that you had. I have to give Akira Kurosawa a mention if we're doing martial arts, is Seven Samurai.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it.
And it's 107 minutes. My God. 1954. Way ahead of his time. And the Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai is an epic drama that takes place in the 16th century in Japan. The film tells the story of a group of farmers that enlist 7 samurais to fend off bandits who threaten to steal their crops. A cinematic masterpiece. Kurosawa's most remembered film, inspired by other movies, including The Magnificent Seven, Rogue One, and even A Bug's Life, which is kind of strange. But we're at 42 minutes. And we should wrap it up before Johnny gets kicked out of the Vancouver Library.
Yeah, I have a plan. Here we go, and then we're done.
I know.
Yes.
So,
Seven Samurai, Yojimbo and Sanjuro Kurosawa films are also super great.
Well, there's a couple others that are good too. But once again, thank you for joining us for our favorite martial arts films. It's Paul Bale,
John Leister,
and we are the Canadian Bro Show. All things Canadian.
I have a plan. It's going to take only a couple seconds. Here we go. If you're cold, sit in a corner. It's 90 degrees.
Oh,
no? Crickets. You're a good audience.
I laughed.
This is Pauly is most generous.
Oh, man. No, yes, I love to laugh, and your puns really make me laugh.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you all for watching. Thanks for your feedback.
Thanks,
and
guys.
Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends.
And hit the notification.
The Canadian Bro Show. More to come.
Hit the notification bell as well. And please comment, as Johnny mentioned, because, we'll answer. If you have any suggestions for future shows, we'd love to hear. We're going to wrap it up. Thanks again. We look forward to seeing you in the next show.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. Cheers.
Peace, everybody.
Believe in yourself. Life is short. Bye. Are we done?
No, we're done.
Thank you, Paul. Oh.